Welcome back to the studio. I've dimmed the lights all the way down tonight. Honestly, looking around the room with the shadows stretching out and the silence of the late hour pressing against the soundproofing, it feels like the only appropriate setting.
It really does.
Because tonight, we aren't just looking at a book, we are looking at a collision.
That is the perfect word for it, a collision. I've got my coffee here, black, naturally, but I feel like I brought the wrong tools. I feel like I need a radio telescope in one hand and, I don't know, a volume of Rumi or a book of ancient poetry in the other to really navigate where we're going.
It's definitely one of those nights. We are diving into a work called IŞIK, or The Light Bringer, by the Turkish author and physicist Burak Semkuskun.
And what a title, The Light Bringer. It's so archetypal, almost mythic before you even open the cover.
It is. And I want to set the stage properly here because our mission tonight is a bit unusual. We are trying to figure out how a theoretical physicist uses poetry to solve the equation of loneliness in the universe. This isn't your standard spaceship sci-fi. It's not a space opera in the traditional sense. It's a poetic narrative that feels, quite frankly, like a dream arguing with a calculus textbook.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's a dream arguing with a telescope. You know, it is a dense, beautiful, sometimes overwhelming mess of astrophysics and Sufi mysticism. And it's short, it's a novella, but it feels heavy. It has gravity.
Gravity is a keyword we're going to come back to a lot tonight. I can feel it. But before we even open the cover, before we get into the star systems and the time travel, we have to talk about the mind behind this. Because Burak Semkuskun isn't a writer who just browsed Wikipedia for some cool-sounding science words to spice up a stanza.
No, absolutely not. His pedigree is serious, and I think that's crucial for you, the listener, to understand. We're dealing with a bona fide scientist here.
Okay, so lay it on us. Who is this guy?
Well, he was born in Istanbul in 1994. He graduated in physics engineering from ITU, that's Istanbul Technical University. Then he went to the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, KTH, to study neutron stars and nuclear physics.
Which is already intense. That's not, introductory physics.
Not at all. And it gets more intense.
Oh.
It does, but it's real. We are talking about the most extreme states of matter in the known universe. We are talking about the cores of dead stars, things that are so dense a teaspoonful would weigh billions of tons.
So when he writes about a star dying or a black hole spinning or the behavior of plasma, he isn't guessing. He isn't just making it up for effect.
Not a bit. He understands the math of the collapse. He knows the equations that govern the death of light. But, and this is the deep dive hook, this is why we are talking about him, he operates in that rare intersection where hard science bleeds into philosophy, into poetry.
He's a bridge builder.
He is. And the perfect example of that is that he is the Turkish translator of the Feynman graphic novel.
Richard Feynman.
The one and only. The physicist who famously said you haven't understood something until you can explain it simply to a first-year student. Kushkin inhabits that space. His bio explicitly says he writes like someone who reads physics papers for fun, but also publishes philosophical manifestos.
And he actually has one, doesn't he? Doğa üzerine ve yönteme karşı.
He does. On nature and against method. It shows you where his head is at. He's constantly questioning the boundaries between disciplines.
Which explains the book's subtitle, GETİREN, Cosmic Ouroboros, the Cosmic Ouroboros.
The snake eating its own tail. It's the oldest symbol of cyclicality we have, right? It appears in ancient Egypt, Greece, Norse mythology. It represents infinity, the cycle of life and death, destruction and rebirth.
But the Kuskun is applying it to something very modern, time and information theory, the universe itself as a closed loop.
Precisely. And visually, the book reinforces this. It was published by KDY, and if you flip through it, the pages aren't just text. It's this mix of verse and sketches. You see cosmic webs, embryonic forms, snakes, even barcodes mixed into the art. It's a multimedia experience on paper.
It has a very particular feel. It reminds me a lot of Aniara.
I'm so glad you brought up Aniara. That is really the gold standard for this specific, incredibly niche genre, science fiction epic poetry. Harry Martinson won a Nobel Prize for it back in '74.
And for those who haven't read it, Aniara was about a spaceship lost in the void, drifting forever, the passengers slowly losing their minds. It was an epic of despair.
A total dirge, a funeral for humanity. And Kuskun is clearly in conversation with it. He actually dedicates GETİREN to Martinson. He's planting his flag in that same soil.
But there's a difference in tone, isn't there? Aniara felt like a funeral dirge for humanity, like you said. It was about the heat death of meaning. GETİREN feels different. It feels more like a search for meaning.
It does. Where Aniara was about absolute despair and the meaninglessness of existence in the void, Kuzgun is trying to engineer a specific kind of hope using physics. He mentions in his notes that the seed for this story came from conversations with physicist Bernard Carr about primordial black holes.
So he's taking these massive, terrifying concepts and trying to find a way to make them mean something human, something more than just an equation.
Yes. He's not just describing the darkness. He's trying to find a way to make the darkness sing.
So let's get into the engineering of that hope. Let's open the book. The story opens in the MEV system. Set the scene for us. What does it look like? What does it feel like when you read that first chapter?
It is bleak. Deeply atmospheric and heavy. We are in a steel cylinder. Essentially a space ark or a colony ship orbiting a hopeless star. That's the book's term. And the planet they came from, the pale purple planet, or Suluk Morgazing, is already dead. It's gone. It perished.
So they are refugees in their own solar system, adrift.
Precisely. And the cylinder itself is failing. This isn't a shiny Star Trek future with carpeted hallways and replicators. This is a rust bucket survival scenario. Think Alien, but without the monster. The monster is just entropy.
Entropy is a much scarier monster.
Isn't it? The text describes panels falling off the exterior. The life support systems are groaning. It feels like the very end of days.
And in this collapsing metal tin, we meet our protagonist, the head engineer, MEV 1522.
MEV 1522.
Uh-huh.
He's a fascinating protagonist because he is, above all, a pragmatist. He's an engineer. He looks at the dials, he looks at the energy reserves, and he knows the math. He knows they cannot stay in the MEV system because the star is dying and the ship is falling apart.
Okay.
But he also knows they lack the energy to physically travel to a habitable world. They are trapped by the laws of physics. There's no magical solution.
Usually in sci-fi, this is where the hero invents a warp drive or finds a convenient wormhole, engage hyperdrive, and they're saved.
Right. But Kuzgun sticks to the constraints of physics. You can't just invent energy out of nothing. The second law of thermodynamics is a harsh mistress.
So MEV 1522 comes up with a different plan, a haunting plan.
A beautiful, haunting plan. He asks himself, if the biological body cannot survive the journey and the steel ship cannot survive the journey, what can? What part of us can actually cross the void?
Information, light, a memory.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Photons. They decide to use their last remaining resources to build a double-panel system to manipulate a plasma jet from their dying star. They want to modulate the plasma, basically turning the star itself into a transmitter, a cosmic lighthouse.
They're building an ambassador made of light. The text calls it a cipher.
Yes, a cipher, an emissary. They are encoding their culture, their history, their song, everything that makes them who they are, into a beam of light and plasma and shooting it into the dark. It's a cry of existence. The text calls it Verlush Haikarujma's, our cry of existence.
There's a profound sadness in that, isn't there? I mean, it's a beautiful idea, but it's born of utter desperation. It's a shout into the void, hoping someone, somewhere has the ears to hear it.
The ultimate message in a bottle. But the bottle is made of stellar plasma, and the ocean is infinite vacuum.
And that desperation, that sadness, is exactly what the antagonist, L3, latches onto.
Ah, L3. The voice of nihilism on the ship. The voice of despair. He represents the other path, the logical, cold conclusion.
What's his argument?
He tells 1522, I have no story to tell you. His argument is brutal and, in a way, logical. He says, if we're going to die, the universe doesn't care. Why waste our last joules of energy screaming? Extinction is the only reality. Why play music for an empty auditorium?
It's the ultimate debate between legacy and oblivion, isn't it? Does it matter if we are remembered, if we aren't there to experience the remembrance?
Exactly. And it's a question Kuzgun doesn't answer easily. But in the story, 1522 wins the debate. Not with philosophy, but with action. With engineering. They build the machine. They launch the signal. They expend their last great effort to scream, we were here!
And then,
silence.
followed by a massive time jump. This is where the book surprised me. Chapter 2 takes us 9,000 years into the future. Same cylinder, same dying star.
Yes, and this is where the sociology gets incredibly interesting. The cylinder is still there, but the civilization inside has devolved. They've forgotten the science. They've forgotten the engineering.
They're still alive.
Barely. They become something else. They revere the system itself as a deity called Kawura. They perform rituals. They don't know how to fix the panels anymore, but they remember the song. The story of the Great Sending has become their religion.
They've become the story they told. That is so powerful. The signal is out there, racing through the galaxy at the speed of light, immortal and perfect. Meanwhile, the creators are rotting in a metal tin, worshipping the machinery they can no longer understand.
It suggests that the message is more important and more durable than the messenger. The art survives the artist. The light survives the star. It's a theme Kuşkin keeps hammering home.
So let's track that message, because the book doesn't just stay in Mev. Part 2 moves us a huge distance, 374 parsecs away, to a place called the Neume system, and the vibe here is completely different.
Completely different. If Mev was mechanical, rusty, and entropic, a story of decay, Neume is biological, sterile, and terrifyingly preserved. A story of stasis.
Oh, so what does it look like?
We're on a sky cabin, Gook cabin, orbiting a gray, gloomy planet. And in the center of this cabin, inside a giant Venus, a bell jar, is the Tree of Knowledge, Bilgiesa.
So we've moved from hardware to wetware, from a machine to a tree.
Exactly. This is a genetically engineered society. It's ruled by judges. It's rigid. It's static. And into this world, we meet Odetta. She's the outsider, the only one without a lineage. She's referred to as Soysus, which means something like lineageless or nobleless. She comes from the gray planet below, the wild place.
She's the natural human in the genetically perfect world. A classic trope, but it feels different here.
It does. And she's hanging out with the jesters.
The Soitari.
Yes. I love this archetypal choice. In literature, from Shakespeare to medieval courts, the jester is often the only one allowed to speak the truth to power. The king is surrounded by yes-men, but the fool can say, hey, the castle is burning.
And the castle is burning in a way.
In a way, yes. The jesters realize that their biological stasis is just as doomed as Mev's mechanical decay. They are stagnant, they're a perfect, beautiful, dying leaf. And then something happens. They receive a signal.
The signal from Mev after all that time.
It's implied. The light has arrived, or at least the idea has arrived.
Yeah.
And it inspires them to do the same thing, to send their own message. But their method is different. They don't use a plasma jet from a dying star.
No, they use a black hole.
They use a black hole.
Okay, this is where we need to slow down and get technical. Because as you said, Kuşkin is a physicist. He doesn't just say they use the black hole magic. The text explicitly says the star is entering a Kerr black hole phase. What is that? And how is it different from a regular black hole?
Right. So most people, when they think of a black hole, they think of a Schwarzschild black hole. That's the simple, static, non-rotating kind. A perfect sphere, a drain in space. Nothing escapes. Simple.
The kind you see in movies?
The kind you see in movies, exactly. But in reality, stars spin. Everything in the universe spins. When a massive star collapses, that angular momentum, that spin doesn't just disappear. It has to go somewhere. So the resulting black hole spins, and that's a Kerr black hole.
And it spins fast.
Incredibly fast. We're talking a significant fraction of the speed of light at its equator. And because it is so massive and spinning so fast, it drags space-time along with it. The effect is called frame dragging.
Frame dragging, okay.
The best analogy is this. Imagine spinning a spoon in a cup of sick honey. The honey, right next to the spoon, swirls with it. A Kerr black hole does that to the very fabric of space. It creates a region called the ergosphere, just outside the event horizon.
The ergosphere.
Right. In this region, space itself is moving so fast that you have to move with it. You literally cannot stand still relative to the rest of the universe.
Yeah.
The space you're in is being dragged along.
Okay, so space is the honey, the black hole is the spoon, I get that. But how does that help you send a signal? That sounds like a problem, not a solution.
It's a solution if you know how to use it. You can use something called the Penrose process. It's a theoretical way to extract energy from the rotation of the black hole.
Steal energy from black holes.
Steal its rotational energy, yes. Essentially, if you throw matter, or in this case, light, into the ergosphere in just the right way, it can split. Part of it falls into the black hole, but the other part is ejected with more energy than it entered with. It is stolen from the black hole's spin.
So they are using the black hole as a gravitational amplifier, a cosmic megaphone.
Exactly, that's the perfect term for it. They aren't just shouting, they are using the most powerful engine in the universe to amplify their voice. In the book, they erect two giant prisms to manipulate the accretion disk, the glowing matter swirling into the hole, and use the Kerr rotation to slingshot their message out. It's astrophysics weaponized for communication.
That is just... It's mind-blowing, and it's so elegant.
It's beautiful. And again, socially, it's the outcasts doing it. It's the jesters and the outsider, Odita, defying the judges.
Innovation always comes from the margins.
Always. The judges are concerned with maintaining the status quo of the tree, of keeping the genetic lines pure. They're looking inward. The jesters are concerned with the song of the universe. They're looking outward. They understand that to survive, you have to change. You have to speak.
So now we have two signals. We have one mechanical shout from Mev, fueled by a dying star. And we have one biological echo, amplified by a rotating black hole from Neume. Where do these signals go? Who is on the receiving end of this cosmic phone call?
This is the deep dive moment.
Yeah.
This where Kuzkin pulls the rug out from under us in the best way possible. The signals intersect. They create an interference pattern, and they land at a destination called the Blue Dot.
Earth.
Earth, but not Earth today. Not New York, not London, not a SETI dish in 2026.
Chapter 5 takes us to the Mavi Nokta, 324 parsecs from Noima. The date is 9600 BC.
9600 BC. Now, for anyone who follows archaeology or ancient history, that date rings a massive bell. That is roughly the dating of Göbekli Tepe in Anatolia, the world's oldest known temple complex.
Before Stonehenge, before the pyramids.
Millennia before. It's the dawn of sedentary civilization. It's when humanity started looking up at the sky and building massive things to match the stars.
And Kuzkin zooms in on a hunter-gatherer child in a cave in Anatolia. This child isn't building a radio receiver. He doesn't have an antenna.
No. He's having dreams.
He's having dreams. This is where the hard science meets the poetic part of the subtitle, isn't it?
It is. The child receives these cosmic waves, these cries of existence from Mev and Noima as visions, as inspiration. He feels the shout of Mev. He feels the echo of Noima. And what does he do? He does what humans do. He makes art. He draws.
He draws a cosmic map on the cave wall. He draws the Ouroboros.
He draws the snake eating its tail. And this is the crux of the book's philosophy. The child draws two trees, one rotting, one green. He is seeing Mev and Noima. He is seeing the mechanical death and the biological stasis. He's receiving the entire story in symbolic form.
Wait, so the implication is that human civilization didn't just start spontaneously. The implication is that our leap into symbolic thought, into religion, into architecture was sparked by these signals.
It's a bootstrap paradox. It's a causal loop. The future sends a signal to the past, which inspires the civilization that eventually evolves to, well, perhaps to become one of the civilizations that sends the signal. The story of the end is at the beginning is at the end. The child looks at the stars because the stars shouted at him.
And it anchors the entire space opera in Turkey. Anadolu Topaklaria, Anatolian lands. Usually in sci-fi, the aliens land on the White House lawn, or they destroy the Eiffel Tower.
Right. It's always a major Western capital.
Kuzkin says, no, the cosmic conversation started in a cave in Urfa 12,000 years ago.
It's a reclamation of narrative. It's saying that this geography, Anatolia, the cradle of civilization, is central to the human story, and therefore central to the cosmic story. It grounds the infinite in the local soil.
That moves us to the final character, who brings this synthesis into language. The poet, chapter 6. We are in Erzincan, a city in eastern Turkey.
We jump forward in time again, much closer to our present, to a young poet in a wooden house in Erzincan. He catches this cosmic echo that the child saw, but he has the language to articulate it. He calls himself the timeless ambassador.
He's the one who can translate the vision into words.
Exactly. And here the language of the book shifts into overt Sufism. The text quotes, Muhyiddinem dervişim, hakyuluna gürmişim.
Which means,
I am Muhyiddin, a dervish. I have entered the path of truth. Muhyiddin ibn Arabi was a famous Andalusian Sufi mystic and philosopher. The poet is placing himself in that mystical lineage.
and this is where the spinning comes in.
This is brilliant synthesis. I can't overstate how clever this is. Think about the whirling dervish. The Sema ritual, what are they doing?
They are spinning, rotating.
They are rotating. One hand up to receive from God or the universe, one hand down to give to the people. They are a conduit. They are a vortex. Now think back to the Kerr black hole.
It's a vortex.
It's a rotating conduit of energy. The spinning Mev cylinder creates artificial gravity. The spinning Kerr black hole creates the energy beam. The spinning dervish creates the spiritual connection. Kuzkin is arguing, poetically, that rotation is the fundamental language of the universe. From galaxies to atoms to human consciousness, it's the dance of the Ouroboros.
So physics and mysticism are just two different ways of describing the same fundamental spin.
That's the argument. The poet realizes the four ways, which references the four gestures of Noima. He becomes the voice that articulates the silence of the universe.
That is, wow, it's seeing the universe as a dance.
A dance of information.
Of light.
And the poet is the one who finally writes down the music. He proves that the signal was received. The Mev engineers didn't die in vain. They created a poet in Erzincan thousands of years later.
Which brings us to the most mind-bending part of the book, which I think is my favorite part, the lost chapter.
Gayup Balloon. This is where the book goes full metafiction. It breaks the fourth wall.
It does. The book starts talking to you, the reader, directly about a missing seventh chapter. It's presented as a dialogue between a master, Usta, a journeyman, Kalfa, and an apprentice, Chirac. It feels like a traditional guild discussion, almost like something out of a medieval text.
It has that timeless, fable-like quality. But then, in the middle of this mystical dialogue, he drops two names that just stop me in my tracks. Maxwell and Kramer.
Right? James Clerk Maxwell, we know, or we should know, father of electromagnetism, the equations of light. But John G. Kramer, that's a deep cut for physics nerds.
Yeah, it's a very deep cut. This is not something you'd find in a pop science book.
So who is John G. Kramer, and why does his name show up in a mystical fable?
John G. Kramer is a physicist at the University of Washington who proposed the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics in the 1980s. This is a heavy concept. Stick with me because it explains the whole book.
I'm ready. Break it down for us.
Okay, so in standard quantum mechanics, the Copenhagen interpretation, things are just a wave of probabilities until you look at them. And then the wave collapses into a single reality. It's weird, and it puts the observer in a strange central role.
Schrodinger's cat, basically.
Exactly. Kramer said, no, that's too messy. It's not a collapse, it's a handshake.
A handshake across time.
A handshake across time, exactly. He suggested that when a particle is emitted, the source sends an offer wave forward in time. But the absorber, the destination, the thing that receives the particle, sends a confirmation wave backward in time.
Whoa. Backward in time.
Yes. Retrocausality. He argues the math allows for it. When the forward wave from the past and the backward wave from the future meet, they interfere constructively and form a standing wave in the present. That standing wave is reality. That's the event. The transaction is complete.
So the future determines the past just as much as the past determines the future.
In that interpretation, yes. And the text of IŞIK explicitly uses the phrase standing wave durandolga. Kuskun is suggesting that the entire book, the signal from Mev, the future, and the child in the cave, the past, is a single quantum transaction, a single standing wave. They are shaking hands across 12,000 years.
That explains the Ouroboros perfectly. The head meets the tail. The signal creates the listener, and the listener's existence in the past confirms the signal being sent from the future. It's a complete, self-consistent loop.
Maxwell is confused. Kramer is exuberant. The truth is mathematics. That's the lines in the book. It's a bold claim that math, poetry, and time are just different facets of the same standing wave.
So the lost chapter is us, the reader, the ones completing the handshake by observing the story.
Maybe. Or maybe the lost chapter is the standing wave itself. The connection, the transaction that we can't quite see but we can feel. The handshake happening outside of linear time.
It's just incredible to think this book isn't better known in the English-speaking world. We're talking about a book that combines Kerr black holes, transactional quantum mechanics, ancient Anatolian history, and Sufi mysticism into a verse novella.
It's criminal, really. But it is changing. Slowly, it's part of a wave of Turkish science fiction that is just starting to crest. We should mention that Kuskun is featured in the anthology of Turkish science fiction stories by T.P. London.
That's a huge deal.
It is. That anthology is historically significant. It's the first major collection of its kind in English, so he has one foot in the international door already.
But GETİREN itself remains untranslated as a standalone book.
For now, but it fits that Indo-European niche perfectly. You know the kind of book I mean? The ones published by small, prestigious presses like Fitzcarraldo or New Directions.
Yes. Short, punchy, intellectually demanding.
Exactly. It would sit on the shelf next to Stanislaw Lem or Italo Calvino or Olga Tokarczuk. It's not a beach read. It's a stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m. read.
I think that's the best description of it yet. We looked at some of the reader feedback from Turkish sites, right? A place like Kitapyurdu and 1,000 Kitap.
We did, and it's fascinating. The reception isn't uniform, which is always a good sign for a piece of art. There's praise for the poetic language, of course. But you also see this recurring theme of readers feeling emotionally unsettled but inspired.
Confusion mixed with admiration.
Yes. You get the, I cried quietly at 2 a.m. reader, the, I didn't understand everything, but I loved it reader, and my favorite, the, this should be adapted into a film or an opera reader.
Which I completely agree with, a cosmic opera. But it shows that the book requires active participation. You have to connect the dots between the plasma jet and the dervish yourself. The book respects your intelligence enough to let you do the work.
It doesn't hold your hand. It gives you the pieces of the puzzle and trusts you to see the Ouroboros shape they make.
So if we pull back to the macro view, for our listeners who want to carry something away from this deep dive, what are the big takeaways? What do we learn from this collision of physics and verse?
I think the first takeaway for me is that science is poetry. We often separate them. C.P. Snow's concept of the two cultures, arts versus sciences. But Kuşkun shows that explaining a Kerr black hole requires the same awe, the same rhythm, and the same search for metaphor as a Sufi poem.
The equation is just a stanza written in numbers.
That's it exactly. They are both attempts to describe the ineffable.
That's a great one. My takeaway is that memory is light. We are obsessed with physical preservation, building statues, freezing bodies, preserving hard drives. But Kuşkun argues that matter fails. Steel rusts. Biology rots. Information light is the only thing that survives entropy. In the end, we are what we transmit.
A powerful and slightly terrifying thought. And my final one would be that local is universal. By centering the story in Anatolia, in Erzincan and Göbekli, he reminds us that the blue dot isn't a passive observer in the universe. The universal story is happening here in our geography, in our caves, in our wooden houses. You don't need to be in New York or London to speak to the stars.
That feels profoundly important. It leaves me with a haunting thought, though, based on what you said about Kramer. If light carries memory, and if that transactional handshake is real, are we breathing in the ghosts of dead civilizations every time we look at the stars?
Are those photons hitting our retinas actually cries of existence from the past and confirmation waves from our future?
It changes how you look at the night sky, doesn't it? It's not just a view, it's a conversation.
It is. And that brings us back to the lost chapter. Is the missing chapter of our own lives just a standing wave we haven't tuned into yet? Are we waiting for a handshake from our own future self to make our present real?
Okay, that's officially too much for a Tuesday night. I need to go read up on transactional quantum mechanics and maybe bake some bread to feel grounded in classical physics for a little while.
And I need to check my standing waves. Maybe listen for an echo.
To any publishers out there who might be listening, translate this book, please. It demands to exist in English, French, German. This is exactly the kind of literature that crosses borders.
And Burakem Kuşkun has other works, Kusur, The Defect, and his manifestos, that we clearly need to explore in a future deep dive. There's a whole literary universe there.
A universe we've only just begun to map.
Absolutely. The posthumanism series he's working on sounds fascinating.
Keep looking up, everyone, and don't forget to check your standing waves. Good night.